Hey guys, I'm Dov, and today I'm back with more Total War Warhammer 2 online action. Today we're back with ALBERIC de Bordeaux. We're going to be taking Bretonnia against the Dwarfs, so let's go ahead and have a look at the army compositions. ALBERIC leading the way. In terms of his loadout here, we've gone with pretty much everything. We've got this little area of effect speed and charge bonus buff, Spirit of the Tempest, quite nice for buffing up these other Royal Hippogriff Knights. Going to kind of act as his air guard, if you will. We've also got Rally. Heroic Killing Blow gives him extra weapon damage and armor piercing. Very good stuff. And of course, Wrath of Manon, which I have been told has been buffed. So let's see how it does here. Got a Damsel Lore of Life, the aforementioned Royal Hippogriff Knights. Peasant Bowmen, we've got the Companions of Quenelle, our single traditional heavy cavalry regiment of renown there. 3 trebuchets already opening up shots. Plenty of men-at-arms, no shields on these guys, no need. And some foot squires out to the flanks. And yeah, you can see I've deployed my trebuchets all kind of spread out here. For the dwarves facing off against us, they are going to be led by the High King Thorgrim there. We've got the whole front line of miners with blasting charges here. Dwarf warriors, plenty of slayers as well. Obvious pick against Bretonnia, very good pick. 4 slayers, I believe, in total. I'm going to be focusing them with trebuchets, despite the fact they do great armor piercing damage. Of course, the slayers are a major threat to my cavalry and, hippogriffs and so on, so we're going to try and take them out. Really don't want to have to fight them in melee at all. Thunderers as well. We've got an organ gun, some more dwarf warriors protecting the back line. So, yeah, relatively standard stuff. The archers moved up into the woods. Going to be shooting at these slayers here. They do have a missile block chance. Technically from the front they can bat away the missiles. I don't think they actually have an animation for it, but essentially it looks like that guy maybe actually dodged there or something. Interesting. But yeah, blasting charges is just ripping through those men-at-arms, but we're going to fly over and kind of feint like we're going into backline here, but then go after the miners in the front line with the hippogriffs to see if we can clean them up real quick and push these peasants into the back line. The miners are going to be able to hold up their leadership to High King Thorgrim nearby, providing those buffs, actually giving some really nice melee defense with stand your ground, and that melee attack as well, giving those miners pretty solid combat stats considering their cost. Meanwhile, Trebuchet is continuing to pound away at that group of slayers. You can see we're doing some good damage so far, all things in good time. ALBERIC pops his stats and goes after Thorgrim himself. Of course, Thorgrim does count as a large entity up on his chair here, taking quite a beating from ALBERIC with his anti-large, up to 600 total weapon strength with Heroic Killing Blow active, just doing a ton of damage here, 400 total armor piercing. And just to put salt in the wound here, we're going to follow up the Royal Hippogriff Knights there. You can see Thunderers opening up from the outside of the woods they are firing in. They are doing some effective damage to the Royal Hippogriff Knights there. You can see despite the regrowth on them, they're still down to about half health or so. So pretty rough stuff. Slayers saturated in here as well. So with the Slayers having relatively low armor, we're going to go ahead and drop the wave here. Unfortunately, a lot of the Slayers do get out of the way, but we do get some damage done here. And it does a little bit more than it did before. It's still not anything game-breaking, like probably not even as much as, say, like the Penumbral Pendulum, but still, it did something there, and it did modify the leadership slightly. You can see a lot of the lower-tier dwarf units are having a little bit of leadership issues. Meanwhile, out here on the flanks, men-at-arms holding just fine against dwarf warriors, foot squires as well, doing a great job. Unfortunately, the Hippogriff Knights routed. Granted, I say unfortunately, they still have all 6 models, and they did come back from routing, so maybe it was favorable. Meanwhile, this unit of miners doing what my opponent should be doing, pushing to the back line here, trying to get on these trebuchets, which so far have been mostly just free to fire the whole game, and they're doing some work against these slayers. Next, targeting this one in the woods here. Some of the trees will block some shots there, but we'll still get some effective fire. Meanwhile, ALBERIC comes back to shut down the organ gun real quick. He is taking some shots from those Thunderers, but you can see anytime a target gets separated here, I'm going to try and go after them with multiple units here. Especially ALBERIC following up with the Hippogriff Knights like this can just do a ton of shock damage. Watch this charge right here. These guys come in and just massacre these Thunderers. Because they're isolated, the Slayers can't get there in time. We're able to just alpha strike this unit of Thunderers and get them off the field very, very quickly, and then get back up into the air. This is going to be more or less the game plan at this point. You can see my opponent still has a relatively tight pocket here, staying pretty defensive. He needs to push forward and try and shut down those field trebuchets. Like, I would take... he definitely wants to stay, you know, in a nice defensive formation like this. I guess he's really trying to get value from this organ gun still. But ultimately, I would try and push forward and get to these field trebuchets and shut them down, because right now they're just generating a ton of value, free to fire at pretty much whatever they want. Granted, that organ gun has got some pretty good work done as well, 66 kills. I didn't quite catch it, but this unit of foot squires got wrecked by that organ gun earlier in the game. The Thunder is also getting some really good damage done on the Hippogriff Knights. Still all 6 models online, though, getting close to their healing cap, so we've got some really good value from that Damsel Lore of Life there. So, yeah, these Companions of Quenelle honestly hadn't been used much up until this late game here. We're going to start to activate them as the Dwarf forces are pretty tattered here. You know, if we can take out the Dwarves' leadership, then the terror from the Hippogriffs will be a lot more effective. So because High King Thorgrim's pretty low at this point, we're going to go ahead and just go after him with the Royal Hippogriff Knights and ALBERIC, that extra charge bonus and everything. Definitely helping out those Hippogriffs there as they come in, just do some extra work on Thorgrim, get back up in the air. There's lots of Slayers in the area. The organ gun also back online, providing some Overwatch fire. The Thunderers are on their way over, so it's definitely a risky situation, but because Thorgrim's so low at this point, you know, we can dive in here and get back up into the air without too much issue. ALBERIC is going to get in here and try and finish things off, and the throne goes down. The High King falls to ALBERIC here. Good old Uncle Albert, finally good for something. And he's going to get back up into the air as those Slayers continue to get pelted by the trebuchets. Just absolute MVPs in this battle, despite the fact that missile units are most unchivalrous. At the end of the day, they really don't have that many kills, but the fact that they're just able to continuously work down these Slayer models and, you know, weaken them as they get into the late game especially, is going to be very, very key here. Balance of power definitely in my favor at this point with the High King going down, and Damsel Lore of Life here. Taking some shots from the Thunder. She has used up most of her magic at this point, but hopefully she's still got a little bit left as ALBERIC has taken some damage. The Hippogriff Knights pretty much at their healing cap. Not quite, but almost. Meanwhile, this trebuchet just about shut down here. The unit of miners that was coming back to shut down this trebuchet, we were able to hold off with some men-at-arms that had regrouped there, came back with the companions and saw them off. So only one group of peasant bowmen left. They had kind of got tangled up in an engagement here in the woods a little bit, but still providing some Overwatch fire on those Slayers in the late game here. So kind of in this little open field space is where we're going to try and force this last engagement here. You can see the Hippogriff Knights shutting down the last of the Thunders. So with most of the ranged threats offline, just one group of Thunders left online. My opponent's going to have to start advancing a little bit here, but we're just going to try and break up his advance and keep him, you know, off balance as much as possible. ALBERIC trying to provide some terror here, support for the miners there, but at this point, because of the healing cap issues, the Hippogriff Knights starting to drop models finally. Dropped a single model, actually. Still going to come in and just wreck those Thunderers on that charge there. Try and finish them off here, see if we can't get a quick terror route. Those Slayers, of course, immune to psychology, they'll be just fine. But here comes another cast of the wave, and this is hopefully going to do some decent damage here. I saw a couple Slayers fall over for good there. Maybe it did something. We'll see. But the Hippogriff Knights getting back up into the air. ALBERIC at this point still relatively healthy, but the Hippogriff Knights definitely suffering pretty badly here. Only 4 unit models left, but the terror is definitely pretty real for the Dawi. Mostly the Slayers are still holding the balance of power at this point, but we're going to try and finish these guys off. This group of Slayers, just charge them with everything here. The Companions, the Hippogriff Knights, ALBERIC, everyone teaming together to take down the heroic Dawi Slayers here. And because of their relatively low melee defense, I mean, I say that, 40 melee defense is actually pretty decent for a, you know, quote-unquote DPS unit, but nonetheless, they, you know, they're relatively squishy. They do take a lot of shock damage from charges and so on, so that there did quite a bit of damage, and at this point, all the Slayer groups are more or less pretty tattered. If we can go ahead and shut down these Thunders, we should be able to finish things off. Trebuchet's just about out of ammo here, the 2 that are still online. This isolated group of miners is about to get the business here. Just absolutely gets deleted by a massive alpha strike from Companions of Quenelle, ALBERIC, the tattered Hippogriffs, despite the fact they are very tattered. Still 4 unimodels delivering, you know, 135 total weapon strength. Just absolutely devastating. So, yeah, those miners just immediately get just flattened. And, yeah, at this point, it's going to be pretty rough. The Dawi trying to form up in the woods here, reform ranks a little bit in this late game, but we'll go ahead and fast forward a little bit as we bring the Alpha Force back over. Some nice fire on those Hippogriff Knights, down to 4 unit models at this point, but still online. Alberic's going to come back and just directly go after those Thunderers. Again, this is kind of another lesson in target prioritization. Really, you've got to think about what units are the greatest threat to you and prioritize your own resources accordingly. Quick terror route with the Companions of Quennell following up, going to break some miners here. A lot of the other, very tattered Dwarf Warriors and Thunderers and so on getting terrified away by the Hippogriff Knights, although they themselves actually rout there because they're so low. Yeah. But at this point, the balance power is very heavily in my favor. Trebuchet crews have used up all their ammo there, so we're going to go ahead and fast forward just a little bit more as the Companions come in, get a nice charge here. They do get a little bit surrounded, but here come the last of the Hippogriff Knights on their final charge here. The Damsels getting involved. We've got the Peasants following up as well, so yeah, this is going to be a very pitched kind of late-game engagement here. Granted, the balance power is pretty heavily in my favor. You can see Alberic was chasing those Thunders a little bit out of position, but he's going to come back over here. A lot of these units shattering for good now, and it's just a matter of finishing off the Slayers. The Archers, swords out, used up all of their ammo as well. Going to get in here and finish things off. So a very fun battle, well played in my opponent. Nice long battle. A little bit of back and forth there, but really Thorgrim was going to be in trouble regardless. I do think that the Hippogriff Knights, because of some of the fixes they've done to the flying unit's pathing issues, they definitely seem better. They seem to disengage more fluidly, and just overall they have better charges and better pathing. Very good against armored infantry. Honestly, they were pretty good in this matchup before. But Alberic in particular, I think, is a little bit better. The Trident, I'm not super crazy about. I think it's going to be better against lower leadership factions like, let's say Greenskin's Beastmen. I might take Alberic on the Hippogriff for that extra leadership debuff. You throw that down, quick terror route, maybe on some troops, might be able to get a favorable situation there. But in this particular battle, I was glad I brought him because of that bonus versus large. Definitely helped out against the High King on his chair there, so very fun stuff. Yeah. Bretonian flying units, I haven't tried Royal Pegasus Knights too much. Based on what I have tried, they aren't necessarily great against monsters or monstrous infantry still. I think they might still have a few issues. I need to try them out a little bit more. But yeah, in terms of the Hippogriff Knights, I do think that they'll be more effective in more matchups. I do want to try them in, like, Chaos, some of the other matchups that are tough, like potentially Lizardmen. If you went really heavy, maybe even bringing, like, 2 units of Hippogriff Knights could potentially work out pretty well. Some of the other heavy Air Force factions, like Vampire Counts, I don't know if you could really contest them in the air. The Coast would be tricky because that matchup is just awful for Bretonnia, but nonetheless, this matchup can potentially be tough for Bretonnia, but this time we were able to carry it pretty well. 104 kills there on Alberic, 114 for the Royal Hippogriff Knights, and 2 chevrons. Got some serious work done, 187 for the Companions of Quennell, definitely sweeping it up. Excuse me. And yeah, Footsquire's doing okay, really not paying out a whole lot, but 58 kills on Peasant Bowmen as well, not bad at all. A lot of those coming against Slayers. Slayers themselves, though, doing a lot of the heavy lifting for the Dwarves. 189 here, 124 here, only 11 here, but 3 XP chevrons. They must have been just working on those Royal Hippogriff Knights there. But yeah, Thunderers and the Organ Gun managed to get 67 kills. Actually did some pretty decent work against, like, the Footsquires and so on. But yeah, overall getting Thorgrim sniped there was pretty rough. He is a little bit more vulnerable than other Dwarf Lords just because he doesn't get knocked around. So up on the chair, he will take the full charge damage. And of course, the anti-large of Alberic applied in that situation. Dwarf Warriors, definitely decent choice here. This is a pretty solid anti-Bretonian army overall. Personally, I like the cannon, better than the organ gun just because it has longer range. It's a bit cheaper, so you can allocate some resources elsewhere. Yeah, bit better against cavalry as well, which, I mean, obviously this is a matchup where you can expect cavalry, or if not cavalry, at the very least hippogriffs. So anyway, very fun battle, well played to my opponent. Hope you guys enjoyed watching. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like, subscribe, hit that bell notification button so every time I upload a new video, you'll be notified. Thanks again for watching. We'll see you next time.